Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 111. Nalagam. So you want us to establish a third faction that would maintain the balance? Lucas dribbled his fingers on the table. He was already convinced by Maria's explanation, but this matter involved the future of the household, so he had to be prudent. Let's proceed with the engagement between Alaric and Hershey first. Once we are tied with the Paxleys, they will have no choice but to take our side. We can start with them and gradually expand our influence over the households in the north. Maria glanced at Alaric when she said this. Alaric wasn't opposed to the idea, so he didn't voice out any disagreement. Lucas leaned on his seat and crossed his arms. All right, I'll give you my approval. However, this has to be done discreetly. We can't afford to offend both princes at the moment. He sternly reminded them. Maria smiled as she nodded her head. I will host a gathering with the wives of the nobles in the surrounding cities and towns. We might find some trustworthy companions among them. She shared her plans to the Baron, while Alaric quietly listened in amazement. His mother's ideas were even more foolproof than what he had come up with. After a thorough discussion with his parents, Alaric left the study room with Fredrin. My lord, you can rest assured. I will not tell anyone about the things I heard, not even my wife. Fredrin muttered as soon as they stepped out of the room. The things he heard were too big, and if they got out, things would get troublesome and his family might even be affected. I know. I trust you. Alaric smiled and tapped the man's shoulder. Fredrin was overwhelmed with emotions. It wasn't even long since they had met Alaric, but he was actually willing to trust him without hesitation. He even had an unusual feeling that Alaric might have already known him for a long time. On their way down the stairs, Alaric said, The soap business is very crucial to the household's growth and development, so you must keep an eye on the things there for me. I will send more people to come with you. They are warriors that I have trained, so you can trust them. Do you remember Mark? Hearing this, Fredrin thought about the hunter who was their fellow slave for a while. He will be coming with you. Train him well. He has the potential to become a knight. Alaric casually mentioned. I understand, my lord. Fredrin nodded. I'll take you to see your subordinates. You must train them well since you will be leading them in the future. Alaric smiled at him. In the past few months since his regression, he had trained dozens of new warriors to improve the household's military power. And now he was handing some of those warriors to Fredrin. In the central area of the Estanian Empire, there was a big city known for its impressive defensive structures that almost made it look like a mega-fortress. It was the home of over 1 million inhabitants, making it one of the most populous cities in the empire, the city of Nalagam. There were 4 households that ruled over Nalagam: House Magdalaga, House Kadera, House Urgel, and House Lanzan. On the surface, it seemed that all 4 of them were equal in power, but this was far from the truth. The strongest of the 4 households was House Lanzan, the earldom helmed by Earl Dave Lanzan. At this moment, there was a secret meeting being held in the estate of House Lanzan, and it was hosted by the Earl himself. Furthermore, the attendees of the meeting were lords of notable households and individuals with high status. Gentlemen, thank you for gathering here on short notice, uttered Earl Dave, a man of majestic bearing who looked to be in his 50s. As soon as he spoke, all eyes gathered on him. As you already know, we have already invited a majority of the surrounding powers to join our side, but we have encountered some issues in the north. The Earl's voice turned grave when he said this. Our representative from the north was killed. Everyone narrowed their eyes upon hearing this. My lord, how did he die so suddenly? Didn't he just boast that he would give us the north in a few years? Someone muttered in a mocking voice. Some people laughed at his remarks. Earl Dave gave them a stern look, making everyone shut their mouth. It is unfortunate. He shook his head. Charles was a careful man, but he made a glaring mistake that ended in his untimely death. I'm sure you are aware of his situation. Everyone nodded. They all knew some information about their members. Charles was publicly executed by his nephew, and that idiot revealed our existence before he was beheaded. The Earl smashed his fist into the table, breaking it into smithereens. Everyone held their breaths when they sensed the Earl's rage. No one dared to speak a word. Now we have two options. The first one is to force Lucas to replace Charles. The second option is to find another replacement. Everyone discussed in hushed voices as soon as they heard this. They were divided. Some of them wanted to have Lucas on their side, while the others suggested finding another household to be their representative in the north. Silence. Earl Dave scanned everyone's faces and pointed at someone randomly. What do you think we should do? The person he had casually pointed took a deep breath before he responded. My lord, the North is too scattered, so even if we appoint a new representative, we wouldn't get any substantial results in a few years. I think we should focus our manpower on the central cities. Most of the powerful households are gathered here, so if we get them to join our side, we would have the upper hand against the second prince's forces. So are you saying that we should abandon the North? Earl Dave frowned. Chapter 112, Renante's Team. Not necessarily. The man nervously shook his head. Actually, I have already sent my people to figure out House Silversword's stance, but if we can't bring them to our side, I already have another household in mind. You can leave the North to me, my lord. I won't fail you as Charles did, he confidently answered. Earl Dave smirked. You surprised me, Lord Kenneth. It seems like you were more prepared than anyone else in this room. The Earl was satisfied with his performance. In that case, I will leave the North in your hands. The days went by in the blink of an eye. The 30th of January came, but there was still no news about the people from the central cities. That's odd. Alaric couldn't understand what was happening. He had already sent Fredrin and a team of warriors to protect the soap shop. However, he hadn't received any word from them for over a week. At this moment, he was on his way to send off Hershey. She had overstayed in North Pine Town, and her father had sent a message asking for her immediate return. My lord, I will miss the tranquility of North Pine Town, uttered Hershey, who was about to enter her carriage. Hearing this, Alaric smiled at her. You can come back here any time you want. Hershey smiled as she stared deeply into his eyes. She wanted to dive into his arms and openly reveal her feelings, but she had an image to maintain. She didn't say a word, but Alaric seemed to have understood the meaning behind her gaze. Before you go, I have something for you. Alaric gave a signal to Elena, who was standing behind him. In Elena's arms was a plump wolf cub. Alaric took the wolf cub from her and handed it to Hershey. Among the 6 cubs, this guy has the biggest appetite and it often sleeps a lot. I hope you can take care of it well. Hershey fell in love with the cute little guy. She gently rubbed its fur and it instinctively kicked her hand, which made her chuckle. She then lifted her head and looked at Alaric. Thank you, Alaric. I will take care of it. Please be careful on the road. I will. The two exchanged a few more words before they bid each other farewell. Just as they were about to leave, Hershey stuck her head out of the carriage window and said, I like you, Alaric. I will always choose you even if everyone is against it. Without waiting for his response, she hurriedly closed the window. Alaric stared at the departing carriage with a smile on his face. Just a little bit more, Hershey. When he could no longer see the entourage, Alaric turned around. Standing in front of him was Elena. She had a complicated look on her face. She looked like she wanted to say something, but she couldn't utter a word. He sighed and took the girl in his arms. Feeling his warmth, Elena hugged him tightly and refused to let go. After what seemed to be an eternity, Elena reluctantly let go of him and squeezed out a smile. Don't worry about me, my lord. I understand your situation. Alaric rubbed her head and said, Let's go back inside. Meanwhile, within the evergreen forest, the practical combat training of the newbies was still underway. The four teams had already eliminated a large number of wild beasts, so their mission was slowly drawing to a close. The group that had shown the most impressive results was the team led by Renanti, the top performer of the batch. With the combination of his excellent commanding ability and his combat skills, his team achieved the best results. Even Arthur was impressed by him. At this moment, Renanti's team was about to return to their camp when they suddenly encountered a monster. It was a four-legged beast with sharp fangs and razor-like claws. A blue-ringed white puma, someone exclaimed in fear. Renanti furrowed his eyebrows. "Stick together and prepare for battle," he shouted to his terrified teammates. "This beast isn't like the wild beasts we fought before. This heavy aura. I'm sure that this is a fatal-grade monster." A fatal-grade monster was mostly stronger than a knight in terms of power. Facing this kind of creature, he knew that they were no match for it. "If only I was a knight apprentice, there might be some chance to take it down, but with my current strength, it's impossible." Renanti glanced at his teammates and saw them cowering in fear. "Don't run. We must stay together," he barked at them. His words seemed to have calmed them down, but it was obvious that they didn't want to confront the creature. "What should we do?" Sweat trickled down Renanti's face as he racked his brain. At that moment, the beast suddenly disappeared and rushed towards them with lightning speed. It was so fast that they were barely able to see its figure. "I'll take the front. Shield bearers, protect the archers," he shouted. However, his teammates seemed to be paralyzed in fear. They were unable to properly react to his commands, making their formation messy and full of holes. Renanti frowned upon seeing this. "There's no choice. I must fight it. Hopefully the instructors are nearby." After some hesitation, he lifted his short spear while keeping his eyes on the monster. Roar! The monster emitted a furious sound before it lunged at one of his teammates, brandishing its sharp claws. Swoosh! Renanti was quick to react. He rushed forward and stabbed his spear towards the creature's side, forcing it to evade. Growl! The beast was enraged. It glared at Renanti with its ferocious eyes. "Do you all want to die? Snap out of it!" he roared. Renanti's words brought his teammates back to reality. They knew that one of them would have already died if it weren't for his quick reaction. If you want to survive, listen carefully. Chapter 113, Owen's Timely Arrival. Let's go with Formation B. Renanti could only hope that his teammates could perform their respective roles. They had trained to fight in different formations before, and each individual had a crucial role. A slight error could destroy their formation. The blue-ringed white puma growled at them. Its legs were taut as if it was prepared to take action at any second. Renanti stared deeply at the creature. He didn't dare blink his eyes, afraid that he would miss its attack. There wasn't anyone in his team who could follow the beast's movements. Not even him. Formation B focuses on defense, but there are two sides that are intentionally left open to serve as bait. Since they couldn't match its speed, they could only try to predict its action. With its natural instincts, it will definitely attack the sides that are left open. My job is to predict where it will go. Renanti took a deep breath as he narrowed his eyes. After a few seconds of deadlock, the puma finally lost patience and pounced at their formation with a growl. Growl! His figure blurred as it rushed towards them in a flash. Left hole, sword out! Renanti shouted almost instantly. One of his teammates stuck his sword to the left opening upon hearing his commands. By some stroke of luck, the sword's blade stabbed into the puma's paws, making it whimper in pain. However, the force of its claws still broke their formation apart, and the shield bearer, who took most of the damage, crashed into the ground with a bang. Bang! In its rage, the puma swiped its claws, sending half of Renanti's group flying into the air, leaving deep claw marks on their bodies. When the enemy is too strong, no amount of strategy can stop them. Renanti thought bitterly when he saw the creature destroy their formation like it was nothing. Just when the beast was about to attack the remaining half of Renanti's team, a figure suddenly appeared to block its path. Instructor Owen! The trainees' eyes flashed with relief when they saw this man appear. Go tend to the wounded. Leave this monster to me. Owen instructed with a stern voice as he pulled the sword tied to his waist. In the next moment, Owen and the blue-ringed white puma engaged in a fierce battle. Bang! Bang! So that's how powerful knights are when they are serious. Renanti muttered in awe as he watched Owen fight the puma without being at a disadvantage. They had been taught that monsters at the fatal grade were mostly more powerful than knights. However, their instructor seemed to have the upper hand, and he even managed to land a few hits on the puma. Instructor Owen is not an ordinary knight. This was everyone's thought as they watched the battle unfold. After more than a minute, Owen's sword slashed into the puma's neck, causing a spray of blood that left the creature severely wounded. It swayed awkwardly as it tried to escape, but Owen stabbed straight into his heart and killed the creature immediately. After killing the puma, Owen made a cut on its body and dug into the creature's chest. A few seconds later, he found its beast soul crystal and pulled it out from its corpse. "Are you guys all right?" Owen turned his head over to Renanti's group. "Everyone is alive, sir, but one needs immediate medical attention," Renanti reported with a grim look. He felt that he was responsible for his teammates' injuries. Owen approached him and tapped his shoulder. "Don't blame yourself. You did the right thing. If not for your instructions, some of your teammates would have died." His words comforted Renanti. "Patch up the wounded. We will return to the estate once the other groups are here," Owen uttered. The 4 groups had mostly eliminated the wild beasts and monsters that had crossed the periphery of the evergreen forest, so it could be said that they had already accomplished their mission. The remaining wild beasts would be taken care of by the local hunters and wandering warriors. The death of the blue-ringed white puma marked the end of the trainees' first mission. Soon, the medical personnel on standby at the entrance of the town arrived to provide treatment to the injured trainees. At this moment, Renanti was watching the doctors administer treatment to his teammates. "It's not your fault, Renanti. No one here is blaming you. In fact, I'm sure everyone is thankful that you are our leader. It would have been pure chaos if you weren't there." His injured teammate chuckled while grimacing in pain. Hearing this, Renanti forced a smile. "You guys better heal up soon if you don't want the others to overtake you," he jokingly said. While the injured trainees were being treated, Owen and Arthur exchanged viewpoints about the 4 groups' performance. "How is Renanti's team?" Arthur asked. He had sensed the fluctuation of mana when the blue-ringed white puma appeared, but he didn't go to the location since he knew that Owen was there. However, he felt a bit regretful that he didn't see the action. "They are doing fine. One of them broke his arms, but he should recover in a few weeks," Owen replied. He then took out the beast soul crystal and handed it to Arthur. "By the way, sir, I got this from the monster's body. What should we do with it?" Arthur inspected the crystal before giving it back to him. "You killed it, so it should naturally belong to you. However, those kids managed to wound the creature, so you must give them a little something." Owen nodded. "I will report this to Lord Alaric. I also believe that they deserve to be rewarded for their excellent performance." He had seen Renanti's team fight the blue-ringed white puma. With Renanti's strategy, they were even able to wound the monster. "Then let's do that." Arthur nodded in agreement. Half an hour later, they all returned to the estate to report the situation to Alaric. Chapter 114. A suspicious group arrives in Vale. Meanwhile, inside the room specially made for the saber-fanged wolf cubs, Alaric and Elena were playing with the little guys when a servant came to deliver a report. "My lord, the trainees sent to the evergreen forest have returned." Hearing this, Alaric put down the wolf cubs and patted his pants as he rose to his feet.
"I'm listening."
"Go on." The servant cleared his throat and said with a serious face, "Some trainees are injured, and from what I've been told, it seems like they encountered a fatal grade monster." Alaric frowned. "All right, I'll be there to check on them. You may leave." The servant took the cue and left right away. Alaric turned his head over to Elena and said, "I'll leave them in your care, Elena. I'll go check the trainees first." Knowing that the situation was urgent, Elena nodded. "Yes, my lord." On his way out of the main mansion, Alaric checked his profile. Alaric Silversword, Knight, EXP. 500/500. Cannot receive more EXP before advancement. Potential, B. Traits. Horseback riding, C. Swordsmanship, SSS. Close combat, C. Archery, F. Hunting, E. Tracking, E. Sixth sense, F. Monster affinity, F. Strength, 100. Stamina, 40+. Agility, 100. Vitality, 27+. Endurance, 42+.
Mana, 48.
Battle points, 4410. Stat points, 77. Requirements for the next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. I'm about to become an elite knight, but my potential is still B. I wonder what's needed to be done to improve it. Alaric thought as he closed the cyan screen. Well, at least I now know what the monster affinity trait does. After a series of tests in the past week, he discovered that most wild beasts and monsters would be unusually attracted to him. Normally, wild beasts would react aggressively to humans, but because of his monster affinity trait, it was as if they treated him like their own. Unfortunately, this only worked on wild beasts and some weaker monsters. He tried it on fatal grade monsters, but they were mostly hostile. As soon as he stepped out of the mansion, he saw Arthur in the distance chatting with Owen. The two warriors spotted him and immediately rushed to his side. "My lord!" Alaric waved his hand. "Tell me the situation." Arthur sent Owen a look as if telling him to give the report. Owen understood this and cleared his throat before he told Alaric about the events that had transpired within the evergreen forest. "I see. It's good that everyone is all right. What do you guys think is a fitting reward for Renanti's team?" Alaric asked for their opinion. Owen thought for a moment before giving his response. "My lord, I think giving them a custom-made weapon is a good reward for their performance. The ones they have are mass-produced weapons which couldn't bring out their full potential." A custom-made weapon? Alaric didn't expect this suggestion. He was thinking of giving them some mana-rich resources. But Owen's words made him realize that their rewards had to be special. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. House Silversword wasn't known for their smithing, but they still had a group of skilled blacksmiths who could make fine weapons. If he used the science screen's standard of grading, the weapons they made should be at the uncommon grade. "All right, I'll give you the funds for those custom-made weapons." Alaric gave his approval. Rewarding the exemplary trainees would definitely spur the others to do better. After discussing with Owen and Arthur, he visited the injured trainees and offered them words of encouragement. At the entrance of Vale, a group composed of 20 individuals arrived. All of them were armed, making the gate guards conscious around them. "So this is Vale. They call this place a city?" one of them uttered in a mocking voice. His companions snickered at his remarks. "Shut up," reprimanded a middle-aged man with a horizontal scar that stretched from his left cheek towards his nose. The group immediately quieted down upon hearing his words. This was because this middle-aged man was their leader, an elite knight who strictly adhered to his principles. "Remember what we came here for. Although this land isn't comparable to the central area, there still exists some powerful warriors here," the middle-aged man sternly reminded. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes when he sensed a powerful aura approaching them. Sensing the change in his expression, his subordinates immediately followed his gaze. They saw a warrior with graying hair walking towards them with confident strides. "Sir Anthony!" The gate guards respectfully greeted the man as soon as he walked past them. It was Anthony. When he received a report that there was a group of powerful warriors at the gates, he quickly came here. One elite knight and the rest are knights. Anthony was stunned by this lineup. This group already had the power to rival a weak household on its own. Furthermore, the elite knight wasn't an ordinary warrior either. He could sense that this person was far stronger than him. "I am Anthony, the captain of Vale's city guards. I'm pleased to meet you, gentlemen." He introduced himself with a faint smile. The middle-aged man with a horizontal scar stepped forward and extended his hand as he introduced himself. "It's good to see you, Sir Anthony. I'm Roland, the leader of this party." Anthony shook hands with him while keeping the smile on his face. May I know the reason for your visit, Sir Roland? To tell you the truth, we are here to talk business with the Silver Swords, but we don't know where we can find them.
Roland calmement répondait.
Anthony's eyes flashed briefly upon hearing this. There's something fishy about these guys. I should alert Sir William. With a cordial smile, Anthony replied. I see. You can find Silver Swords territory in the next town if you follow that direction. They also have a store here. I can send my men to take you there. That would be great. Thank you for your help, Sir Anthony. Roland cupped his fists. I'm glad to help. Anthony chuckled. I need to buy some time. Before we head there, why don't you guys join me for a meal? I'm sure you are hungry from the journey. Chapter 115. Roland meets Fredrin. I appreciate the offer, Sir Anthony, but we are in a hurry. Maybe next time. Roland tactfully rejected his invitation. It seems like the Silver Swords are close to the city guards of Vale. He was sharp enough to notice that Anthony was trying to delay him. Is that so? What a pity. Anthony shook his head with a regretful expression. The two exchanged a few more words before Anthony instructed one of his men to bring Roland's party to the soap shop. As soon as they left, Anthony's face became somber. He sent his subordinates a look and said, Send a few people to follow that group and report their movements to me every 2 hours. Yes, sir. His men sensed the seriousness in his tone, so no one dared to slack off. After giving more instructions to his subordinates, Anthony rushed to the orphanage. Sir, that shop over there is the soap shop owned by the Silver Swords. I see. Thank you for taking us all the way here. Please accept this. It's a small token of my gratitude. Roland smiled as he handed a small pouch to the warrior. The warrior grinned as he took the pouch. It's my pleasure to help you. Seeing that Roland was no longer interested in talking with him, the warrior decisively turned around and left. Once inside the shop, remember not to cause trouble. Roland reminded his men with a stern look. Yes, sir. A moment later, they crossed the road and were about to enter the shop when the bodyguards at the front door barred them from entering. Roland's men frowned upon seeing this. A few of them almost lashed out, but Roland raised his hand and gave them a deep look. Brothers, we would like to speak with the shop owner. Roland politely spoke to the guards even though they were only knight apprentices. One of the guards responded while firmly shaking his head. We apologize, sir, but our lord is busy with other matters. If it's really important, I can go inside to inform the manager for you. One of Roland's subordinates suddenly ran out of patience and snorted. Do you even know who you are speaking to? Roland glared at the man, but he couldn't bring himself to reprimand him since the guy was speaking out for his sake. He cupped his fists and said, I apologize for his behavior. We don't mean to cause trouble. Please inform your manager about our presence. The bodyguards' faces darkened. Step, step. Suddenly, a group of warriors stepped out of the soap shop. What is happening here? The person leading them asked with a stern voice. Sir Fredrin. The bodyguards saluted the man before one of them whispered something to his ears. Fredrin shifted his gaze toward Roland's group upon hearing the guard's report. An elite knight, and he is not any weaker than me. Both men locked gazes in that instant, and they were taken aback when they sensed each other's strength. I am Fredrin, the guard captain of this shop. Fredrin approached the other party and stood before him. Roland nodded. I'm Roland, the leader of this party. I'm pleased to meet you, Sir Fredrin. Likewise, Fredrin calmly replied. We came here to discuss business with the owner of the shop. I hope you can arrange a meeting for us. Roland could tell that this man was different than the captain of the city guards. Anthony was polite and cordial, but Fredrin didn't seem to have the intention of being friendly with them. This guy might be difficult to handle. This was Roland's first impression of him. Fredrin shook his head. Our lord isn't in the city, so your request might be difficult to fulfill. However, I can take you inside to speak with the manager. He has the authority to discuss any business matters related to the store. I see. Roland was only trying his luck, so he wasn't too disappointed with his response. Discussing business is just a secondary matter. Our main goal is to have a chance to speak with the Silver Swords. Hopefully, the manager can help me arrange a meeting with them. Otherwise, we would have to visit their estate directly. Roland was very particular with etiquette. He also didn't want to offend the Silver Swords, so he was willing to go through this much trouble just to get the chance to meet them. Please lead the way. I would like to speak with the manager. Fredrin nodded. All right, but you can only take 2 people inside. We don't usually allow armed guests inside, so I hope that you will understand our situation, he explained. Roland understood the implications in his words, so he didn't make things difficult for Fredrin. No problem. He then turned around and chose 2 of his men to follow him inside. Sir, what if this is a trap? We can't trust these people. One of his men whispered. Hearing this, Roland shook his head. I don't think the Silver Swords would be foolish enough to offend us. Just stay right here and leave the talking to me. But he didn't wait for their response and headed inside the shop with Fredrin. Meanwhile, in the orphanage, Anthony got down from his horse. Uncle Anthony! A few kids who were familiar with him eagerly called out when they saw him. Anthony adjusted his breathing and forced out a smile as he spoke to them. Hello, kids. Where is your Grandpa William? Grandpa is resting inside. One of the kids pointed at the newly renovated orphanage. Oh, is that so? Just stay here and continue playing. Uncle Anthony still has some matters to discuss with your grandpa. Anthony excused himself and headed inside the renovated building to look for William. Just when he was about to head in, he suddenly saw a figure stepping out onto the balcony on the 2nd floor of the building. Sir William. William furrowed his eyebrows. What happened? He felt that something was amiss when he saw Anthony's expression. Chapter 116. William arrives at the store. William invited Anthony to his meditation room. What is it this time? The old man asked as he gestured for Anthony to sit down. Anthony took his seat and responded with a serious look. Sir William, just earlier, a group consisting of 20 warriors came to the city. One of them is an elite knight and the rest are knights. Most importantly, they are heading to the soap shop. Hearing this, William's face fell as he rose to his feet. What did you say? Some of the kids in the orphanage were working at the soap shop. Please calm down, Sir William. I don't think those guys came here with bad intentions. Their leader seems to be a decent man. Anyway, I came here to tell you this. If you want to go there, we should get going now. Anthony suggested while trying to pacify the old man. William nodded with a grim look. Let's go. He didn't even bother to change his clothes, but he grabbed the sword leaning diagonally against the wall next to his cabinet. At the soap shop, Roland was now sitting inside Vince's office while his 2 subordinates stood behind him. In front of him was the manager of the shop, Vince and Fredrin. After introducing themselves, Roland immediately stated his intention. Sir Vince, to tell you the truth, our main objective is to meet Lord Alaric and Lord Lucas. He paused for a moment before he emphasized his next words. There is something important that I would like to discuss with them. Vince understood the meaning behind his words. It was like politely telling him that he had no authority to hear the information and only the Silver Swords could hear it. With Fredrin beside him, Vince felt more reassured, so he managed to calm his nerves. He might not be a warrior, but he could tell that Roland wasn't an ordinary person based on his gait and bearing. He had already discussed this with Alaric beforehand, so he didn't bother to make things hard for Roland to prevent discord between both parties. That would be great. Roland was relieved. He was already prepared to be rejected, but it seemed like the Silver Swords had already made arrangements. Just give me a moment to write the recommendation letter. In the meantime, why don't you check the shop's products? We can give you some free samples to try. I'm sure you'll love them. Vince chuckled. Hearing this, Roland wanted to reject the offer, but he felt that it was too rude, so he reluctantly nodded his head. All right, then I'll trouble you to write the recommendation letter. It's no trouble at all. Vince waved his hand as if it was just a small matter. He then sent Fredrin a knowing look. When the latter saw this, he immediately stood up and nodded to Roland. Sir Roland, I will take you to see the products. Amen. Roland nodded and stood up from his seat. After they left his office, Vince could finally relax. Man, that was scary. Who is that guy? Phew. He wiped off the sweat on his face as he let out a heavy breath. Fredrin brought Roland and his 2 men to the display area. The shop was crowded with customers, and most were women from rich households, which was obvious from their flamboyant style. Fredrin beckoned to Josephus, who was keeping watch at the aisle. Seeing this, the young knight immediately headed towards him. What can I do for you, Sir Fredrin? Can you ask one of our staff to accommodate these gentlemen? I'm not familiar with the products, so I need their help. Fredrin whispered to him. I see. Just wait here for a moment while I call one of them over. Josephus left right away. A few moments later, a young lady dressed in a customized uniform approached them with a professional smile. Hello, Sir Fredrin. Are these the guests who require assistance? Fredrin nodded. That's right. Please bring our products for them to see. The manager has already given his approval to give these guests some free samples. All right, just give me a moment to get the products. The young lady excused herself and left. The soap shop experienced a huge boom in sales, so more workers had been hired to accommodate the customers. Roland could see that the business was successful even though he wasn't an expert. At this moment, he suddenly sensed a powerful aura from outside the shop. HM? Furthermore, this aura was so much more powerful than his own that he felt suppressed. He narrowed his eyes as he turned his head at the entrance. From there, he saw an old man calmly walking inside the shop. His gaze was tranquil and unfathomable. When their eyes met, Roland felt like he was looking at a predator. A transcendent knight. Sir William. Fredrin was also surprised to see the old man. After coming to the store, he had acquainted himself with this old man, so he was familiar with him. William nodded to Fredrin before he turned his gaze towards Roland. His stern face broke into a smile, and the pressure from earlier seemed to have vanished like a puff of smoke. I am William. My grandchildren work here, so I came to check on them. The old man spouted a random reason to explain his arrival. William, I don't remember there being another transcendent knight under House Silversword other than the Baron himself. Who is this old man? While gathering his senses, Roland extended his hand with a cordial smile. I'm honored to meet you, Sir William. My name is Roland. Chapter 117. An Old Friend. William observed the atmosphere and he realized that he might have jumped to conclusions earlier. He nonchalantly nodded and just decided to go with the flow since it was already too late to turn back. You have good taste, Sir Roland. The scented soap here is a unique product. As you can see, the noble ladies love it. William had a wealth of experience, so he managed to come up with a good topic.
Roland Loguet de Quardly.
Yes. You're right, Sir William. At this moment, the young female worker whom they had spoken with earlier came back with a basket full of scented soap boxes. She politely greeted William before she showed the products to Roland. Sir, these are our products. This one is the... She introduced the different kinds of scented soap one by one. With her arrival, William immediately took the chance to leave after waving at Roland and Fredrin. But he didn't step out of the store. He headed straight to the production room where the children at the orphanage were working. Meanwhile, Roland was relieved now that the old man was gone. The pressure emitted by the old man was so intense that he thought that he was being targeted. Please don't mind him. Fredrin's voice drifted into his ears. Roland stared at the elite knight as he continued. Sir William is overprotective of the children of the orphanage, since he treats them like his own grandchildren. Roland smiled wryly while nodding his head. I understand. A moment later, Vince came out of his office and handed the recommendation letter to Roland. Thank you for waiting, Sir Roland. If there's nothing else, I suggest that you leave while it's still early. The weather might not be too favorable this evening. Vince beamed as he offered him his suggestion. Is that so? Then I'll take your advice. Thank you for your help, Sir Vince. Roland cupped his fists. No problem. You can come and visit me anytime. I can offer you a discount if you buy our products. Vince chuckled. He then sent Fredrin a knowing look. All right. Roland nodded and followed him out of the store. Meanwhile, at the training ground of House Silversword's estate. My lord, I have already practiced stabbing thousands of times by now. Can you teach me a different move? Aaliyah stared at Alaric with a pleading look. Alaric taught her the fundamental techniques of swordsmanship, but he had mostly taught her techniques related to stabbing. He told her that it was necessary to build a solid foundation before learning other sword techniques. She followed his teaching methods, and despite her frustrations for only learning stabbing techniques, she didn't complain. However, after the recent mission in the Evergreen Forest, she realized that she still had a lot of room for improvement. Alaric stared at the stubborn young lady. Her skin had already become tanned after being constantly exposed to the sun, and her body had also transformed from that of a skinny young woman to an athletic warrioress. He had seen her relentless efforts under his tutelage, and she was even more hardworking than her male colleagues. Aaliyah, I only taught you how to stab because you are new to swordsmanship. Teaching you other techniques would only bring negative results, but you are right. I can see that you are now ready to learn another sword technique. Alaric smiled faintly. Hearing this, Aaliyah was pleasantly surprised. In truth, she only wanted to try her luck, and she had even prepared herself for a cold rejection. Who would have thought that Alaric would actually agree to her request? This time I'll be teaching you how to properly slash your word. Try to observe my movements. Alaric grabbed his sword and performed a series of slashes. His actions looked simple with no flashy movements added. Whoosh! Whoosh! His sword made a tearing sound as he swiped through the air. Aaliyah watched him carefully without blinking her eyes. As someone who had received his guidance on stabbing techniques, she knew that Alaric's movements weren't simple. It might look like a basic slash on the surface, but the degree of control, the angle of the slash, and many other details were being followed. Together, they form an unimpressive-looking, but seamless slash that could bring out one's full strength with every swing. This was what she had comprehended after reaching a decent understanding of the stabbing technique he taught her. Whoosh! After one final slash, Alaric put down his sword and glanced over at Aaliyah. Did you see it well? He asked. Aaliyah smiled in embarrassment while shaking her head. Yes, my lord, but I won't be able to execute the movements perfectly like you do. That's normal. Unlike him who had had the SSS-Rank Swordsmanship trait, normal people had to learn using their own comprehension. He didn't even need to train hard to understand and execute the most complex sword techniques. It was like the sword had become a part of him, an extension of his body. It was the most accurate description of what it felt like to have the SSS-Rank Swordsmanship trait. Show me what you have understood. He motioned for her to take out her sword. Aaliyah nodded and pulled her sword. Shuring. She felt a bit nervous now that Alaric was observing her. To calm her nerves, she took a deep breath and shook off all the distractions as she tried to remember Alaric's movements. In the next moment, she lifted her sword and imitated what she had remembered. Whoosh! Whoosh! Alaric could see her flaws at a glance, but he didn't correct her immediately. She's focusing too much on imitating me, but it's quite surprising that she comprehended that much after only one demonstration. At that moment, he felt that she might be more talented in swordsmanship than he had imagined. Impressive. She just needs a little bit more training. That's enough, Alaric calmly uttered as he motioned for her to stop. Looking at Alaric's indifferent face, Aaliyah didn't know if she had performed below his standards. Don't focus on imitating me. My sword is different than yours, and our physical characteristics aren't the same. You must integrate what you have. Alaric explained the principles of the movements to her in a way that made it easier for her to understand. Aaliyah listened with great attention. Soon, she revealed a look of realization as if something clicked in her mind. I see. So that's why it felt so weird when I tried to imitate it. She mumbled something under her breath before she eagerly tried for the second time. Alaric didn't disturb her and just quietly watched her performance. Whoosh! Whoosh! The strength behind each slash is stronger now, but it still needs some work. She already has the basic principles, so she just needs to incorporate everything she learned until it is deeply engraved in her mind. While she was absorbed in her training, Alaric sensed someone approaching from the distance. He turned his head and frowned when he noticed a few unfamiliar figures riding on horses together with Fredrin's team. With just a glance, he could already feel the aura emitted by the man who seemed to be the leader of the group. Peak Elite Knight. It was a level that was comparable to Fredrin and Warwick, but still a bit weaker than Galliner. Hold on. That person. Alaric's eyes trembled when got a clearer look at the man. It was a familiar face. One who had been with him for the longest time on the battlefield. It's been a while, Sir Roland. This man was one of the battalion commanders who led the Crown Prince's army in his past life. He was a powerful warrior who would soon have his name etched in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. Galip glop, galip glop. The clip-clop sounds of the horses made Aaliyah stop her training. She was a bit annoyed after having been disturbed, but when she saw the intimidating group coming towards them, her annoyance turned into alarm. A few moments later, the group stopped in front of them and climbed down their horses. Fredrin and his subordinates walked towards Alaric and bowed to him. Greetings, my lord. Roland's group seemed to have realized Alaric's identity when they saw this. Can you tell me what's going on here? Alaric calmly asked. Although he already knew the other party's identity, he had to pretend like he didn't know. My lord, this man is Sir Roland, an elite knight under. Fredrin quickly made the introductions. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lord Alaric. I have been eager to see you in person after I heard tales about your amazing talent. Roland stepped forward and gave him a standard salute. He's just as I remember him. Scary on the outside, but a kind man deep down. Alaric's lips curved upwards as he stared at his friend. Chapter 118. Discussion with Roland. Alaric's eyes were filled with complex emotions. He had so many words to tell him, but they seemed stuck in his throat. You flatter me, Sir Roland. Why don't we head in first? As for your men, I'll send someone to arrange their accommodation. Roland was surprised by his friendliness, and he had this weird feeling as if they had known each other for a long time. He couldn't point his fingers as to why he had this reaction upon his first encounter with Alaric. All right, I'll take you up on that offer. Roland nodded with a faint smile. Before heading inside the mansion, Alaric told Aaliyah to practice by herself. He had already taught her the basic principles of slashing, so she only needed to comprehend the movements on her own. A while later, Alaric brought Roland to the spacious guest hall, and he even asked the servants to prepare a sumptuous meal for him and his subordinates. After taking their seats, Alaric was the first to open his mouth. So can you tell me why someone from the central area has come to visit our small town? Hearing this, Roland's expression turned serious as he adjusted his sitting posture. My lord, I won't hide it from you then. He paused as if he was gathering his thoughts before he continued. I don't know if you have already heard about this. His Majesty is not in good health. It's been months since he was bedridden. The imperial physicians provided him with numerous treatments, but nothing worked. By this point, Roland shook his head with a grim look. The Empire's upper echelons are getting restless because of this, and there are even rumors of rebellion among a small group of nobles. To prevent chaos from happening, His Highness, the Crown Prince, is gathering the loyal subjects of the Empire to rise into arms and protect Estania from the traitors. We have gathered. Roland disclosed the existence of a force behind the Crown Prince, but he didn't tell him their most important secrets. After all, Alaric was only a prospective ally. Alaric remained silent as the other party laid down everything on the table. They were very sincere in their invitation. This was also why he joined the Crown Prince's army in his past life. Their sincerity moved him. However, he wouldn't make the same choice this time because he had seen the results of that choice, and it was something that he didn't want to witness again. This is a very important matter, Sir Roland. I can't decide on my own. Alaric didn't give him an answer right away. Why don't we take things slowly while I discuss this with the Baron? Your group can stay here in the meantime. I'm sure you guys will love the natural landscapes here. Roland didn't make things difficult for him, so he nodded with a smile. All right. Thank you for letting us stay here, my lord. Alaric waved his hand. It's just a minor matter. About 20 minutes later, a servant came to inform him that the food was ready to be served to the guests. Sir Roland, I have prepared a sumptuous meal for you and your men. You guys should eat first since you traveled a long way to get here. I also need to speak with the Baron about the information you told me. Alaric had to inform his parents about the situation. Roland couldn't bring himself to reject the offer. Besides, his men haven't eaten anything since they came to North Pinetown. All right, I hope to hear the good news from you soon, my lord. Hearing this, Alaric didn't say anything and just chuckled. I'll take my leave first. Please enjoy your meal. Alaric stood up and left after excusing himself. He immediately sent someone to call his mother before he headed to the Baron's study. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Alaric pushed the door open after getting the Baron's approval. He noticed that the butler, Bastian, was there pouring tea for the Baron. When the old butler saw that it was Alaric, he respectfully bowed to him. Alaric smiled and nodded at the butler. I heard that we have guests from the central area. Are they the same people who caused a scene at your soap shop? The Baron asked as he pointed the seat in front of his desk. Alaric sat and moved the chair closer. Yes, it's them, and according to that person, they are working for the Crown Prince. The Baron didn't respond immediately and motioned to the butler to give Alaric a cup of tea. The butler was quick to react. He grabbed a teacup from the cabinet next to the window and wiped it clean with a white cloth before placing it in front of Alaric. With practiced movements, he poured tea into the cup. While the butler was pouring tea for him, Lucas finally spoke. The Crown Prince, huh? I've seen him on multiple occasions. His Highness doesn't seem to be a bad person, but he tends to make wrong decisions because of his rash personality. This was his impression of the Crown Prince. He is a charismatic man, so I'm sure that many households would support him. Unfortunately, he lacks a reliable advisor. He sighed and shook his head. The imperial family was full of intrigue. He was once scouted by the Emperor 2 decades ago, but Lucas rejected him and decided to guard the north instead. This was because he didn't want to be involved with the schemes and plots of the imperial family since his wife was pregnant with Alaric at that time. At this moment, there was a series of knocks on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Maria stepped inside the room dressed in thick winter clothes. She nodded to the butler before she glanced at her husband and son. Take your seat. We need your advice on the situation. Lucas pointed to the seat opposite Alaric. Maria flicked her hair as she elegantly took her seat. What's the matter? Chapter 119, Teaching Roland. I see. So it's the Crown Prince. Maria fell into deep thought after hearing the situation from them. After a moment of silence, she lifted her head and said, We will proceed as planned. Hearing this, Alaric and Lucas nodded with grim faces. The next day, Roland still didn't receive any response from Alaric. It seems like they are still debating over the matter, but their hesitation is understandable. After all, His Majesty is still alive. If he recovers, the Crown Prince could receive punishment for gathering private forces, and the people who followed him would also be punished. Roland thought deeply as he went out of the guest mansion to discreetly observe the activity inside the estate. As soon as he stepped out, the cold morning breeze hit his skin, but it hardly affected him because of his strong physique. As he walked along the snow-covered, cobbled pathway, he heard a familiar sound from the distance. HM? Someone is training this early in this weather? He was taken aback. Feeling curious, Roland followed the direction where he heard the sound, and soon, he arrived at an open training ground. There he saw one man repeatedly performing the same sword movement. Lord Alaric? He didn't expect that it was actually Alaric. Roland observed for a while. He thought that Alaric would perform the same sword movement, but then the latter changed his pattern all of a sudden. This time he was repeatedly stabbing his sword into the air. Whoosh! 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 The more Roland watched, the more he noticed that something was quite different with Alaric's style and technique. It wasn't the conventional sword stab that he was used to, but a version that seemed to be entirely different. The most surprising thing was that every stab was swift and decisive, almost without any flaw. He looks like he is only casually stabbing his sword, but each stab brings out his maximum potential. Roland was amazed by this and he even wanted to follow Alaric's training routine, but he was too embarrassed to disturb him. A moment later, Alaric stopped after he received the notification from the cyan screen, telling him that he had completed his daily mission. He had already sensed Roland's arrival earlier, but he didn't stop his training and continued all the way until he completed the exercises. Good thing I didn't use that sword in today's training, Alaric thought as he waved his hand while staring at Roland. The elite knight immediately approached him after seeing that he had stopped his training. "Good morning, my lord. I apologize for disturbing you." Alaric waved his hand and smiled. "It's all right. I'm already done with my training."
Roland hésita-t-il.
He wanted to ask Alaric about the routine he performed earlier, but he was too embarrassed to mention it. He also felt that it was inappropriate to ask about someone's techniques. Alaric saw through him at a glance and he couldn't help but chuckle. "Do you want to learn it? I can give you some pointers," he uttered jokingly. Roland didn't expect that he would be seen through just like that, and it was even someone who was less than half his age. "How could I?" Alaric raised his hand and shook his head. "It's not a big deal. Let me show you." He didn't wait for his response and pulled his sword. Roland took a step back to give him some room to show his sword techniques. In the next moment, Alaric swung his sword. Whoosh! It was the same sword movement he had seen earlier. Amazing! His swordsmanship is even better than mine. He didn't want to admit it, but the young man in front of him had already surpassed him in terms of pure technique. "Have you seen it clearly?" Alaric smiled at the serious-faced warrior. Roland gave him a look of undisguised admiration. "I have learned a lot from you, my lord. Stop flattering me and show me what you comprehended." Alaric tossed his sword to the elite knight, making the other party stunned. "Huh?" With a bewildered look on his face, Roland caught the sword. "Is he seriously thinking of teaching me his technique?" He couldn't believe it. The sword technique that Alaric displayed was unlike any other. If it was someone else, they would definitely guard this technique closely and never let a stranger learn it. However, Alaric didn't seem to share the same ideology. "Stop dawdling before I change my mind." Alaric's voice sounded more serious this time, so Roland no longer hesitated. He adjusted his stance and moved the sword according to what he had remembered. Whoosh! Whoosh! Alaric watched him in silence. His comprehension is worse than Elia's, but he has some talent. At least it's on the same level as Renante's and Rasmus's. He felt tempted to take this man on his side, but he immediately dropped the idea when he recalled Roland's personality. This man was loyal and he would never betray his lord. Well, there is an exception. His principles. He knew that Roland followed a strict principle. He was willing to sacrifice his life for his lord, but he will never hurt the innocent. In his past life, there was one time when Roland disobeyed his lord's commands. It was because he was ordered to attack a village for its strategic location. Roland was supposed to be executed for his disobedience, but because of his contributions, he wasn't executed and was only demoted to that of a normal warrior. That was also how he had found his way into Alaric's group. Is there any way to bring this guy to our side? While he was seriously pondering about this, Roland lowered his sword and looked at Alaric. "Did I execute it right, my lord?" Roland's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "It's not bad, but your form still needs a lot of polishing. I noticed that you—" Alaric told him about the mistakes he made.
Roland quietly listened.
Chapter 120, Urgent Report. "How about we spar for a bit? Of course, we are not allowed to use mana." Alaric wanted to take the chance to use this guy as his training dummy. It was rare to find a good sparring partner like this since the elite knights of the household were always busy with their respective tasks. Roland was taken aback. "Are you serious, my lord?" He thought that he had heard Alaric wrong. After all, he was an elite knight, so he was inherently stronger than Alaric. Even without using his mana, he was confident that he could beat anyone below the realm of elite knights. This wasn't baseless overconfidence, but the belief he had in his abilities. Lord Alaric might be a swordsmanship genius, but technique alone doesn't win a fight. He thought to himself as he looked at Alaric, who was walking toward the nearby weapon rack. After choosing 2 wooden swords, Alaric tossed the other one to Roland, who caught it reflexively. Roland temporarily put aside the steel sword he got from Alaric and played with the wooden sword. It felt light in his hand, but as an expert swordsman, he quickly adjusted to its weight. "Then I will accept your challenge, my lord. Please guide me." He lightly bowed to Alaric. "Good." Alaric chuckled. He thought that he would trigger a system mission, but there was no reaction from the cyan screen. This left him a bit disappointed. The two locked gazes while quietly assessing each other. As a seasoned veteran, Roland had experienced numerous battles. There were times when he had almost died during those battles, but he managed to survive all those encounters. A spar was like a walk in the park for him, nothing to be nervous about. However, facing Alaric, he felt strangely nervous.
I'm nervous.
He was surprised when he realized that his hands were shaking. Roland shook off his random thoughts and took a deep breath to calm his nerves. In that instant, Alaric suddenly made his move. Whoosh! It was a direct stab with no superfluous movement. Roland lifted his sword, casually deflecting the stab aimed at his chest. Pak! Alaric frowned when he sensed the other party's power. He had already maxed out his strength, but there was still a huge gap between him and an elite knight. That seemingly casual deflection made his balance shift, forcing him to adjust his center of gravity. Taking the chance, Roland released a flurry of attacks. Pak! Pak! However, Alaric seemed to have defied gravity by parrying his attacks with unnatural angles. It was an unconventional defensive technique that caught Roland off guard. Pak! Pak! Their spar continued for another half a minute when an urgent shout forced them to stop. "My lord!" Alaric lowered the training sword and looked at the approaching warrior with a frown. Roland felt that it was a pity. He was starting to enjoy the spar, but it was unfortunately cut short. Alaric sent him an apologetic gaze. "Let's do this again next time, Sir Roland." The elite knight knew that it must be something serious, so he nodded without complaining. "What happened?" Alaric asked the warrior with a stern look. The warrior took a moment to gather his breath before he replied. "My lord, there is a request for reinforcements from Alverton. Their messenger told me that they had sighted a large group of orcs approaching the town." Hearing this, Alaric was bewildered. Orcs? The orc invasion isn't supposed to happen anytime soon. Why did it suddenly? From his memory, there was still more than a year before the orc invasion. Furthermore, the orcs targeted Vale and not Alverton. Something has changed. Alaric felt that he had something to do with the sudden changes of the events. "Inform the warriors and have them gather in front of the main mansion," Alaric instructed. "Yes, my lord." The warrior acknowledged his command with a solemn nod. "Go. I need to inform the Baron about this." Alaric waved his hand. The warrior didn't dawdle and left after giving him a snappy salute. Alaric turned his head over to Roland and smiled bitterly as he said, "Sir Roland, it seems like our discussion has to be delayed. Are you planning to send reinforcements?" Roland asked in surprise. "Of course. Alverton doesn't have a proper military and they only have a handful of knights and knight apprentices. They wouldn't be able to survive an orc invasion." Alaric responded with a grim voice. "I'm sorry, Sir Roland, but I need to go." Without waiting for his answer, Alaric turned around and left. Roland watched the young knight leave with haste. Normally, a noble household wouldn't care about other territories except their own. But there was no ounce of hesitation in Alaric's eyes when he mentioned sending reinforcements. It was rare to find someone like this, especially within the nobility. Most of them were conceited people who only cared about their own interests. Should I go and take a look? This thought crossed his mind. After some internal struggle, he shook his head and headed back to the guest mansion. Meanwhile, Alaric went straight to the Baron's study to inform him about. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions, just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.